you believe it's Doctor Doom?
What's on your evil mind?
Hold your insulting tongue and mark my words well.
How about this rumor that you are really Iron Man, Mr. Stark?
Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at NewsNestNeed on Twitter. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
With Columbia down the way.
And the sound effects you heard come from none other than our man in Brooklyn, @agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram.
What's up, everybody? Co-hosting from the Borough of Kings. We're going a little old school tonight.
Yes. And you can find this here podcast on the Coastal Podcast Network. That's ESPN.us.
Do it today.
You can also find us on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal Podcast Network's SoundCloud page.
Make sure to hit like and subscribe and leave us positive 5-star reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts.
Indeed. You can also find us recording every Thursday night, mostly every Thursday night, on the YouTube channel of the Kliq Nation. That's youtube.com/thekliqnation and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles.
Again, please hit like, subscribe, and hit the notification button so you will know when we are live recording and broadcasting.
Curious. All right, folks, we are going to get right on into the dealings here while whatever page this is loading up. We're going to start off with books. It's not a surprise because we don't normally start off with the book, but Invincible Iron Man #7 is what we're going to start off with.
Right, and there is a specific reason why we chose this of two books to start our conversation tonight with. Invincible Iron Man #7 is written by Jerry Duggan with art by Juan Frigeri, colors by Brian Valenza, and letters by our favorite, super active, super busy lettering paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. We pick up essentially right where we left off. And if you haven't figured this out yet, the Invincible Iron Man book is crossing over into the X-Men corner of the Marvel Universe because guess what? Fei Long, not the character from Street Fighter, but Fei Long from the X-Men, the adversary of the X-Men, the businessman, has essentially bought out Stark Industries. And Tony Stark is seeing his technology once again being used for no good. And he's looking to try to stop that. And that is the crux. That is the point of this issue. And he and James Rhodey Rhodes are trying to do just that. Stop all of the bad things that might happen when Stark Tech and Sentinel Tech from the late Trask family meet, and things don't exactly end well. And I'll leave Roddykat to pick it up from there.
Yeah, I was about to say, spoiler alert, doesn't necessarily go that way, as we will find out in the next book, or even at the end of this book, which we won't spoil, but you'll understand what we're talking about when we get there. There was a nice little note that I hadn't thought about in a minute, because as you're going through this issue, you kind of see things play out, and you kind of think they're going one. I mean, you kind of think they're happening one way until you get to this one panel. It's like, oh, okay, so that wasn't who we thought that was. Going through the motions at first,
right?
So, and there was in the particular conversation that ensues in the midst of that, we find that Tony is not the one in the red and gold armor at the moment. And there was a nice little note that was like, yeah, it hadn't been in these colors in a minute. From the aforementioned Rhodey. I'm like, you know what? It's right. That is completely right. Because ever since that almost fatal incident, way too long ago.
Right.
He's
Well,
been
depends. I was about to say it all depends on perspective. Way too long ago for us, not so long ago for them.
well, I mean, I don't know. It was still some time for them too, though. Like we don't
Sure.
know how long. That's the thing. Because of,
Exactly.
as you
Rubber
would say, the flying
band timeline.
Exactly. But it's definitely has been some significant
Yeah.
time. So
A decent amount of time at least.
right. So, but it was like, okay, that's funny. And of course, as the time those similar times would convey, there's another new armor that comes in the mix. Although, excuse me, a new version of an old armor, I guess you could say, with a couple of new stolen tricks, or at least one stolen trick from someone who we might actually talk about a little bit later. So
Yep. At least an homage to that trick.
exactly. But yeah, I enjoyed this issue. It was like, outside of the fact that things didn't kind of work out, and there was a nice little what I thought to be a Biggie reference that happened, which I guess probably should have clued me into something, but you wouldn't have never thought about it based on what was going on.
What was the big reference?
Kicking in the door.
Oh my god! Now I got to look this up. Now I got to see it.
I mean, it's not as specifically a big reference, but he does say something about kicking in the door, and that just kind of put me there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's-
Like
which
it
is-
doesn't. It's not like the line is kind of delivered with the same kind
Right.
of. Gotcha.
But basically, what's going on and what he's got in his hands when he's kicking in the door kind of put it in mind for me.
Right. I understand.
So, but yeah, like I said, it was a good issue all the way around. But we also find out, since we can go, I guess we can go to the next book. As you said, things don't work out the way the way they had planned it out, because we come to find out from the end of that book that, well, that tech is kind of already out there. And that's
Exactly. I was about to say, it's been out there apparently, unbeknownst to Sony. He is basically a step behind.
Exactly. Which brings us to X-Men number 23.
Right. In X-Men 23, also written by Jerry Duggan. So it makes all the sense in the world.
Mm-hmm.
There is art supplied by Joshua Cassara. Colors are by D. Cuniff. And letters by VC's Clayton Cowell. So as we said, the efforts of Rhodey and Tony are essentially in vain. Although there is some success in their mission, they do admit that in the book that there was that the efforts of Orcus and the bad guys have been hindered somewhat by what Tony and Rhodey were able to achieve. But they have been producing these amalgam hybrid monstrosities, and just one of them is unleashed against the X-Men after some serious effort on the part of the main X-Men team. They're finally able to deal with it, but things are not easy.
Not only that, but we come to find out that you can cue Akbar on this.
Say again?
I said we also found out during the course of this that you can also cue Akbar, because it indeed is a trap.
Oh, that's right. I was about to say, I was like, you should have said, if you said Admiral Akbar.
Oh, well.
Right. Like, just in my head, I was just like, who? Oh. Because, of course.
And there will be a couple of times tonight in some books where that sound effect will be necessary.
Yeah, pretty much. So, what was fun about this issue, I wanted to add very quickly at the beginning, is that we get, I don't know if this had been revealed in other books, but we finally figure out what the deal is with Mother Righteous.
I don't think so either, because I have it in my notes. It was like, wait, that was the thing?
Right. So I was kind of glad they revealed that here.
Right.
Kind of in the main X book, not, I hate to say this, not in one of the other X books.
I assumed that this was because I thought about that same thing, but also was like, wait, was this something that came out in Sinister that I didn't get around to? But I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either, to be honest.
Right.
But I did not read all of the issues of Sins of Sinister, so we may
Same.
both be we may both have missed out on that.
Right.
So.
But otherwise, that we kind of get, there's a couple of, like, as they're going through this, a couple of things we notice, such as Cyclops is back in the 90s gear, or a version of the 90s gear.
Right.
Because I actually read this and the last couple of issues trying to catch back up, because I had totally lost the thread on what was going on since Sinister. So it was like, so I read those 3 books. I was like, wait, so he went back to asshole psych in the last issue. Now he's back to 90s psych. Oh, actually still kind of asshole psych, given some of the things he's been doing lately. But regardless, he went back to the 90s gear in this one. So I'm like, okay, he's been doing some quick changes.
Right.
So
right. And also at the end, did we mention at the end of this issue, it ties into the events of last week's Amazing Spider-Man?
We didn't say that here, but we said that we were talking in pre-show.
Yes, in the pre-production meeting.
So so it was kind of surprised that was the case so soon. Which, and like I said, I like I was telling Agent 7, it's like, yeah, we know they're talking to each other, so I'm sure everybody's, abreast and kind of had time to do whatever they're going to do prior to this.
Right. And we all know that the events of Amazing 26 were editorially determined. So, it's fair to say that there was some coordination involved moving forward.
And as Agent 70 said before the show, they're like, yeah, they wanted to kind of try to get us out of the way before the Hellfire Gala, which if some of the stuff we've been kind of seeing, or at least one or two of the things that we've been seeing in as we were talking in the back channel, is going to be actually the case, or just maybe just coincidence. We may see something happening there or around there in relation. We don't know.
Or soon after, leading up to November.
Right.
And it's what the calendar jumped up. It didn't bite me today, but I definitely felt the calendar today, thinking of how quickly the years passed. We're essentially halfway through now. It's June.
Yep. Yes, it is. The time for gaming, folks, and also Pride Month, obviously, and Black Music Month, but also, yeah, it's time of year where games get announced for the next year or so. So that's the thing that is currently going on as we're recording,
right?
And the whole weekend,
right? It's just kind of crazy that we're in June now.
And of course, con season for to keep it.
Yeah, I was about to say tickets for New York Comic Con go on sale this weekend for pre-fan verified. The I think last weekend was for like the people who paid extra money to get like first dibs.
Right. In San Diego is next month. I can't remember the date though.
Yeah, July something. But
right, I can't remember the dates though. But either way,
New York Comic Con tickets go on sale.
Right.
And that's a big deal for myself and friends of the show.
Indeed. But back to the books. X-Men was a pretty straightforward issue. And there was a couple other X books that I didn't get a chance to get to, but I know Agent 7 will be talking about in Rapid Fire. So so we're gonna go with 1 or 2 more books.
Sure. How about we skip over to something that was a little more straightforward, if that's fair to say. Sure. Spider-Man number 9. It's written by Dan Slott with pencils by Mark Bagley, inks by John Dell, colors by Edgar Delgado, and letters by, again, our favorite busy lettering paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. I will just very briefly say that this issue is kind of a nice departure from what's going on over in Amazing. and I will let Roddykat pick it up from there.
Yeah, that's fair. So as we found out last issue, Peter, well, actually, we found out a couple of people didn't think things through, but Peter, as we found out last issue, didn't think things through when he tried to as said in this issue, once again tried to bump up his powers, and now, well, bump up a power, a subset of his powers, I should say, and now that's in overload, and that's
Seriously, what he did? Pardon my interruption. He basically did what Rakim said. He pumped up the volume, but on his spider sense.
Or yes, or in the fast parlance, he hit the nos.
Oh boy!
Which, speaking of, there was a part of this issue that was that bugged me for about 2 seconds, but it, even though it got explained a few seconds later, but it still kind of bugged me. Nevertheless, there was another part that kind of got me in that while Peter, with his amped up powers, was basically trying to stop any and every bit of crime imaginable in the city. There was one in particular in this issue that was kind of well, actually, there was a couple of ones kind of amusing because he was kind of punchy. But one of the ones had to do with these two dudes fighting over. I don't know if it was tabletop or if it was or I assume this is probably like a MMO situation that they were fighting over.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, I enjoyed that part. I was like, yeah, and yes, the dude was wrong. Cleric should have healed instead of being greedy. But anyway,
I mean, that's some gaming stuff.
Yes,
that's a little, like I have all sorts of sound effects I could use for that. A little bit of, I'm getting too old for this shit. There's a little bit of that, and there's a little bit of what, and a little bit of. What you talking about, Will?
you know what it is. It's tabletop gaming. I'm pretty sure.
Right. It's adapted. Right. It's adapted from Dungeons and Dragons, so that's my only frame of reference. I get it.
Right. But also. But while this is going on, Electro, was doing his big heist things, and he didn't think things through with that. But both of those situations end up coming together near the end of this issue, just to kind of get it along now. Now, the part that kind of bugged me was that before the family dinner that was had, that apparently Norman Osborn crashed.
Right. I'm like, wait a second, that's not Thanksgiving. Why on earth does anyone need cranberries at that point?
Right. I thought about that too. It's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love cranberry sauce, but that was like, yeah, that's a little, it's situational and
yes,
seasonal more so than not. But I'm like, okay, sure. It's Norman Osborn. What does he know? He's kind of out of touch with a lot of things as he as shown by his what he says as he comes in.
Sure. I just thought it was hysterical.
Yeah, I was like
seriously?
Right. But it was like before that when there was when Peter was kind of going through the motions and Norman kind of came along. I'm like, how in the world did Peter not know before that? I'm not going to spoil what happens, but I'm like, there is an explanation, but the explanation doesn't make sense given that usually the way Peter's powers work is kind of before things happen.
Right.
So I'm like, how in the world did that happen? But there's an explanation to that's probably just like he didn't probably see Norman as a threat. I don't know.
Exactly. And he wasn't at that point.
Well, true. He wasn't, but
Yeah.
So yeah, but that was like I said, that kind of bugged me for like 2 seconds, but it was like kind of let that go because again, like I said, it was already logicked out by the time we got to the next page. But otherwise, it was a as Agent 70 said, a good straightforward issue, and we even got a little bit more on that Spider Boy character, which we still don't know a whole ton about. That I assume we're going to find out a little bit more about soon. But right now it's just kind of there. So, and I assume it's going to have something to do with how this situation gets dealt with. So, we'll see. So I guess the last one, unless you got something else. Oh yeah, and there was that whole conversation with J. Jonah Jameson and Norman, but we don't need to go into all of that. But I thought that was like, what else could be going on with that? Like I get it. It's like, yeah, sure.
They're share. Yeah, I was about to say they have a secret. And they
right,
share it. You know,
right,
they are
and
the secret keepers.
and they've referenced a footnote there. It was like, I don't remember that, but okay, sure. Let you have that one. But anywho's, we're gonna push on to the next book, and I guess the last book that we have in common, Fantastic Four #8.
Fantastic Four #8 is written by Ryan North with art by Ivan Fiorelli, colors by Jesus Bertov, and letters again by our favorite busy lettering paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. So this is, I guess, a departure from where the FF book has been, but in a sense they are on the run, sort of. They're resettling, sort of. And basically they have found themselves in the thick of yet another kind of supernatural, kind of weird situation where things are not what they seem, nor are situations in small towns what they seem.
Right.
It's a it's a remix on that. It's like Diddy and some other producers got a hold of that story.
Right. And from what I've read, this is the start of a 3-issue mini arc. So they're just basically taking a break from the main story to kind of to do with this. So the stranger thing about this, I guess the story in itself was kind of strange in itself. It was like, wait, didn't they already do something similar to this in the start of this volume? But okay, we keep the things going. There is a certain variant cover, which if you're watching the video version, that kind of got me excited for a potential thing that happened, but I don't think has anything to do with what's going to happen in this arc. If it does, that'll be amusing. Because this character only shows up for annuals or has only shown up for annuals and classic shenanigans, let's just say.
Right.
And if you're watching the video version, you see the cover that I'm speaking of right now, as I put up another cover that is different. But yeah, overall, it was a good. It's a good issue so far. I love the fact that Sue gets to see how the Walmart crowd has to deal with the lines, also. Because I was reading that, I was like, yeah, I see that pretty much every week. Every other week that I go to the store. So that's nothing. Like, clearly, you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff, but some
suburban living. I mean,
yeah.
The most suburban experience I have is at Target, right? We do have like urban Targets here in the city, but it's every once in a while we get that whole like one register is open and everything else is self checkout. Every once in a while, but
yeah, but
that's
Target's usually pretty good about that, right?
That's the closest it gets.
Right.
Walmart and all the other big stores. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not a member of those Costco type clubs, so
I am, and yeah, it does happen there, but but usually things kind of flow.
Yeah,
unless it's like.
Were you getting Jabba the Hutt vibes or Pizza the Hutt vibes
from the character?
Yeah, from the character.
You know what? Now that you say that and looking at the cover, I can kind of see it. But I wasn't thinking about it.
They're carrying her around, and I was surprised that it was a her. But yeah, they were carrying her around, on a platform.
Right. Actually, you know what? I didn't pick up on the fact that it was a her, because now that I think about something that was just said, yeah, I guess that's true. Although, but still doesn't make any sense, because it was like I was reading that part and I was like, wait, then that doesn't make any sense if so and so can remember these people. But anyway, regardless of that, yeah, I don't know, it was weird. But like I said, I thought there was something else involved, and maybe there could very well still be, but like we don't know that because like the first issue of the arc
Sure.
issue arc. So we'll see what happens with that, or if it just ends up being just that, and they're just kind of biding their time for it to get back to the main story stuff.
Right. Okay. So that covers basically 4 books that we have in common. Now we're going to get into all of the other books that we read this week. And I'm going to spin up the minigun because both of us read a lot of books this week, folks. There was a lot of content provided by the publishers this week. You know, it's the first week after a holiday week. So that makes some sense. So allow me to spin up the minigun for rapid fire comic book reviews.
I ain't got time to bleed.
All right, first up, we have Batman number 136. It's written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Belen Ortega, colors by Tomo Mori, and letters by Clayton Cowles. There's a backup story which is also written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Jorge Corona, colors by Ivan Placencia, and letters by Clayton Cowles. Again, not hanging out with VC because that's a Marvel exclusive contract. Bottom line here is that we're coming off of this whole, fail-safe, stuff and time travel shenanigans or alternate dimension shenanigans. And this is Zdarsky's way of resetting things, but still carrying that whole fail-safe stuff forward. That's essentially what happens in this issue, and we have an explanation as to how fail-safe comes about in the main story as well as the backup story. Next up is Ambassadors number 6 of 6 from Image. This is written by Mark Miller with art by Matteo Scalera, colors by Lee Luffridge, and letters by Clem Robbins. So let me tell you this. It was obvious from the start that this is the first 6-issue arc of a longer story. What I did not expect was that there would be some level of, I don't want to say finality, but some level of closure at the end of the 6-issue arc. And I was very much surprised that Miller put that in to this issue. This is very much a slugfest in very pure superhero terms. What they do let spill, though, at the end is that the Miller World, books are all going to have a big crossover coming out of this. I guess Ambassadors is the last of the books, and now all of the Miller World books are going to have a crossover. So be on the lookout for that. I don't know if I'll be reading all that, but I definitely did enjoy this Ambassadors miniseries. There's only 6 of them, and it's worth reading.
I think I want to say we may or may not have we may have talked about that in passing, that whole crossover thing. I can't remember though.
Sure. It was somewhat new to me, but then because we alternate news sometimes we remember best the ones that we read out loud. Next up is Captain America Sentinel of Liberty number 13. It's written by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, former guests of the Comic Book Chronicles. Art is by Alina Erofiva. Colors are by Nolan Woodard, and letters are by our favorite busy lettering paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. We continue the Dimension Z story silliness. The White Wolf gets very literal, and I still take issue with how they are portraying Steve Rogers in this. It is very clear that they are doing a little bit of MCUification and bringing Sam Wilson more to the forefront as the prime Captain America in the 616 comic book universe, but they're not doing it the way I think they should be doing it, which is kind of what they're doing in the movies, which is making Sam Wilson a different style of Captain America. They're making him a little bit too much on par physically with Steve Rogers in this, and I'm a little uncomfortable with that. And I fold in our conversation when T'Challa and Sam Wilson had it out, and Sam Wilson somehow was at least on equal footing with him, and neither myself nor Roddykat were like, wait, we were both kind of in shock. So that's my biggest problem with this, but you know what? I'll wait to see what happens. We're up to now the Omega issue of this Cold War stuff, and that's going to be coming out soon. Next up is Daredevil number 12. It's written by Chip Zdarsky with art by Marco Cacchetto, colors by Matthew Wilson, and letters by VC's Clayton Cowles. My understanding is that this Daredevil run is about to end. We have maybe 2 issues left, and this issue has some really interesting homages and callbacks, especially in between Daredevil and Elektra. It ends in a very weird place with some, there have been some very supernatural things happening in the pages of Daredevil and the Punisher. And, it's weird to see, it doesn't necessarily mix well, but then when you're dealing with the hand and some of the supernatural things that are involved with the hand and dark magic, I guess it's bound to come about, and it's always been kind of in the background of the Daredevil run that Zdarsky's put together. And I guess I'm just uncomfortable with it, but it's not exactly foreign to the pages of Daredevil. This is, if it floats your boat, that's okay. I don't know if I'm going to be all that satisfied when this run is over. Next up is Immortal X-Men number 12. It's written by Kieron Gillen with art by Lucas Verneck, colors by David Curiel, and letters by VC's Clayton Cowles. Immortal X-Men number 12 has some interesting tie-ins to stuff that's been happening in X-Force, because specifically it deals with one Piotr Rasputin, otherwise known as Colossus. We all know he is not right, because things that happened in the pages of X-Force are now coming to bear in the pages of Immortal X-Men, as Colossus sits on the Quiet Council. And things are going on, and not all of it is good, and all of this is definitely a precursor to the fall of X.
I kind of hate what they're doing with that character, and as they've done with like other characters like Beast, but
Yep. But at least they explain this.
Right.
This one is definitely explained. The Beast one is kind of not, like I said, it's the Dark Beast light story that we're getting with Beast right now. This one is definitely far more straightforward, because Peter is not in control of his own actions.
Right, and it had been going on, and it had been like that for a minute, because I think the whole X-Force thing has been started a while ago.
Yes, sometime last year even, if not longer. It's been going on for a while. So it is finally coming to root and roost. So ultimately, we will see how that plays out in and around the Fall of X storyline. Finally, we have X-Men Before the Fall, Mutant First Strike number 1. It's written by Steve Orlando with art by Valentina Pinti, colors by Frank William, and letters by VC's Travis Lanham. This is exactly what it says it is in the title. An opening salvo by Orcus and the Allied forces against the X-Men, against basically against the idea of Krakoa and mutantdom, and the prominence that Krakoa has achieved in the world's eye and on the world stage. And this is, unfortunately, if you are well read enough in the sense of having read Marvel Comics going back to Civil War, there are echoes of Civil War in the pages of this book. And that's it for me.
Wait, does this have to do with the Cyclops gene stuff? Because I felt like
no.
Oh, it's not that stuff. Okay.
No, but when you even if you just skim through it, you will see echoes of Civil War. Okay.
Because at first, as I told you before the show, I've been reading X-Men. I've been catching up on X-Men as just was X-Men, and I was under the impression that this book was alluded to from one of the the initial letter pages from I think last issue or something, but I guess not.
No.
Okay.
But you can see, like I said, ultimately there has to be we won't say it's a tipping point, but it's definitely the first salvo. It's a first strike. It's the first salvo in a war.
Gotcha. Or not lotus pages, the exposition pages, basically. But yeah, anyway. All right. So I guess that's it for you.
Yep.
We'll go into we're going to hit the stars, folks. And the first one we go into is Star Trek Defiant, number 4. Written by Christopher Cantwell with art by Angel Unzueta, colors by Marissa Louise, and letters by Clayton Cowles, not with VC because this is away from Marvel. I'm just going to read off my notes here. You ever see a Klingon? You ever see a Klingon on adrenaline? Some of y'all know what that reference is, but I wasn't gonna go through the whole thing. Regardless, this is so yeah, was critically hurt, but still kind of kicking around thanks to this new member that has made their way on board. Spock's Spock, who is the second in command, is kind of in charge, but he's kind of narrating his thoughts about what's going on, or things that are going on. They're still trying to make their way to the Day of Blood stuff. And in that they're the main ones that's been trying to track down Kahless's ship, because he's the one kind of going around killing the god type characters in the universe. And of course there's this Red Path cult that's kind of following him. And the plot thickens because we found out in this issue that it's not just a Klingon thing. Might have some Romulans involved. Or at least Romulan tech that is involved, but also, I guess other species. But regardless, and because of the whole Romulan connection, well, I'll save that for Kliqs of the week. But we definitely do get a call back to a TNG character. That comes into play, who's kind of been alluded to this whole time. And also there's some ship stuff where, because a couple of characters still got beef and Lore's kind of kicking around, and that's kind of causing Worf a little bit of a headache for slightly obvious reasons. But they brought him on board, so their fault. Next up, Star Trek Deep Space Nine: The Dog of War, number 3. I'm going to put this particular variant cover with Jadzia and Worf because it's cute. Written by Mark Chin, art by Angel Hernandez, colors by Nick Filardi, and letters by Neil Uotake. So the DS9 crew are pretty much giving a going away party for a dog. However, this dog, granted, quite rare dog in this universe at this particular time frame, I guess it makes some sense. But this is continues to still give me a weird Cowboy Bebop kind of vibe here because of the dog in question. But Quark, also with Quark's dealings, that ends up coming out because of some other things that are on the station that are happening, that kind of comes to bear here, dealing with some Borg tech that kind of came along with that dog, and the Federation trying to use it, and some other people wanting it, and information, and also some Mass Effect stuff. If you know anything about certain parts of Mass Effect, you will kind of get a little bit of vibe of that in this particular issue. There's a nice little actually a couple of Easter eggs. One that may possibly be also from the Mass Effect universe, if you've played that game, but also from Star Trek fandom. That was nice to see, because there is a person that mentioned this that has now been canonized in the Star Trek universe, who is aligned with the Phantom, let's just say. So that's pretty cool. I call some people that are involved Black Market PETA, which that's some of that in there, so it's kind of weird. And it also feels like this book is kind of leading up to some of the events of Star Trek Picard season 3, with some of the things that are talking about. So it's kind of weird on that. But I don't know if that's the case because this is again set back in the time of DS9. So, but yeah, otherwise that pretty good book still. And the crew kind of sets up a rescue mission that you could almost see the slow motion walk happening at the end of the book, which is kind of amusing. All right, next book, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles versus Street Fighter, #1 of 5 from IDW, which is written by Paul Allore, art by Ariel Meadow. I don't know if that might have been a typo. Colors by Sarah Myers. As I try to hang on, as I try to see if that's right. And letters by Ed Dukeshire. So yet another crossover for the Turtles. And I said on Twitter, like, this is pretty much checking off the box. Yeah, Medell. So okay, that's right. Another checkbox crossover for the Turtles, and they don't have that many left that they haven't crossover franchises that they haven't crossover with. I'm thinking My Little Pony's probably next, Transformers, G.I. Joe, and I just found out there was a fanfic for the G.I. Joe Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover, so that's weird in itself. But the crux of this is that there is a tournament that's being held, and the Street Fighters and the Turtles are there competing against themselves and others. Or yeah, against other people. Now, if you know about anything about these two groups and the fact that there's a tournament that's involved, you can kind of get the sense that you kind of know who's behind it and possibly why. That's all I pretty much need to say about that. Although there was a couple of using fights, one between Guile and Raphael, and the other one between Mikey and Chun-Li. The last of which ended kind of humorously, and understandably, I would say. So, but yeah, this is it was a cool read. I don't know where ultimately this is going, or if it's just going to stay straight to what you think is going to be. But hey, there it is. If you're a fan of those franchises, just in time for Street Fighter 6 to be out, even though this is not set in that time frame. But we'll get to that later on. Steelworks, #1 from DC, which I know I forgot something. I forgot to read Shazam. Let's see, hang on for a second. Here we go. Steelworks, #1 of 6. Speaking of Star Trek, this is written by one Michael Dorn, aka Worf, aka, actually I totally forgot about this. He voiced Steel in, I believe, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. The animated series, or if I'm not mistaken, I should have to go back and check that out because it definitely says on the cover that he voiced Steel. So but I can't remember if that was the case or not, or something else. But this is art by Sam Basri, colors by Andrew Dalhouse, and letters by Rob Lee. So John Henry Irons is pretty much trying to become the damage control / I don't want to say Tony Stark, but there's kind of some of that there. Now, granted, he's already had his tech already out there, but he's kind of got this thing in his head that was like, well, Metropolis needs to be able to defend itself, despite the fact that there are a bunch of supermen's and women's, including himself, running around. But he basically wants to try to get something off the ground. It's like, no, here's a good power source, and here's a way for Metropolis to defend itself without having to rely on the supermen's to help protect them. And I think he's trying to also hang up the steel tights or metal, whatever, at the same time. But if things are going the way they seem to be going, with looks to be a disgruntled co-worker from his old company and some other almost less Luthor-like folks trying to incite some issues, that might not be so easy for him to do. So yeah, but yeah, it's interesting because I don't think I've I don't know what else Michael Dorn has written. I'm sure there's probably a Star Trek book or some other stuff that he's done that I'm just not familiar with, but I think this is the first one that I've seen comic book wise of him. So I definitely wanted to check it out. Plus, I have some slight familiarity with the character of Steel. But check it out if you wish. Star Wars number 35. I read a lot of books, folks. Sorry about this. Written by Charles Soule, art by Madibek Muzabekov, colors by Rochelle Rosenberg, and letters by VC's Clayton Cowles. So Luke's got some help from this lovely young lady named Greta, who takes him to this doctor who is an expert in kyber crystals named Quada, and who's a little bit eccentric, but he seems to be doing some stuff. And Luke gets a much needed lesson on a lightsaber tech, let's just say. But he's also called to do a couple of things, or do a thing for the doctor that has to do with kyber crystals. And I think elsewhere in the Star Trek universe, we have seen this, seen some things going on with what the doctor wants him to do, which has Luke taking a couple of trips to the dark and light sides of the Force, and him being a slight pain in the neck when he doesn't realize it was his fault for something that he was complaining about while he was on this trip. But nevertheless, he kind of gets what he wants for now. And we also kind of get to see where something's eventually going to happen with his next lightsaber, whenever that happens. Next book, speaking of Jedi training, Star Wars Yoda number 8, written by Mark Guggenheim, art by Alessandro Miracolo, colors by Annalisa Leone, and letters by BC's Joe Caramagna. So this is back in the time of the Clone Wars. We see Yoda and Anakin raid a separatist base because they got wind of some new droids, as I look at my notes, called mega droids that they're trying to stop. And as I look at my notes again, we can cue Admiral Akbar, because it ends up being...
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, boy.
There you go. But of course, being two capable Jedis of their worth, while taking some losses, still end up going on with the mission. And some impressions end up happening, which is weird. Next up, Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Empire number 1. It's the next book. If the name sounds familiar to you, yes, this takes place during the time before Return of the Jedi, and is written by Jody Hauser with art by Jethro Morales, colors by D. Corniff, and letters by BC's... I have no idea who's doing this because I didn't apparently write that down. Pardon me a moment, folks. But while that's coming up, basically it's like this. We pretty much get to see... That's not the right one. I guess the tagline is what if the Empire took over? Because we finally get the story of those civilian contractors that the Death Star used, or at least one contractor that the Death Star used in its employ, because of the fact of the Empire took over this one family's contractor, and they hired one of the members to do some stuff on Endor, and we pretty much get to see what that contractor gets into, which, as one would suspect, doesn't go all the way well for this particular character. And we may also possibly see a little bit of a familiar Andor setting at the end of it, which may or may not factor into everything I just said. So I think this was a one-shot issue. I'm not sure. There might be. I think this is one of those one-shot issues because it's the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. Yes. So I don't think there's going to be any more to this because this seemed to just end with whatever happens. And that, folks, are all of my books. Kliqs of the week.
Kliqs of the week.
So we did get one from Dirt, which I guess we shouldn't be surprised. And also, I believe it was the only book that he read. Star Trek Defiant #4. Well, actually, he didn't say that it was the only book that he read, but he basically did call out the fact that that this issue was the thing. Because he says there's a new issue of Star Trek Defiant this week with yet another callback character returning, which was also what I alluded to earlier. So there is that. Do you have yours while I pull up this cover?
I can discuss what I'm leaning towards, what my candidates are.
Okay.
So I can definitely say that Ambassadors #6 was a pleasant surprise because it did not proceed the way I thought it would. It did not leave us on that kind of cliffhanger, like Fast 10 did, right?
Thank goodness.
And I was kind of glad. Not even a cliffhanger the way Across the Spider-Verse left us. So I'm glad for that. So Ambassadors #6 is definitely a contender. I did enjoy reading Immortal X-Men #12. It is well done, despite the fact that it's so frustrating to see how long this ploy against the X-Men using Colossus has been going on, and to see it start to come to fruition, and poor Peter not being able to do anything about it. That was actually really well done. X-Men #23 wasn't bad either. There was lots of action in it. But I think I'm between Immortal X-Men #12 and Ambassadors #6. So do you have yours yet? Because I'm still kind of weighing the two.
No, but I can just kind of discuss. I can discuss mine real quick. So, Star Trek Defiant definitely was a decent one. Steelworks #1 actually has me curious about where this is going and what they're trying to do in this book. So, there was also a point in this book where John was talking to his niece and was talking about a discussion with the supers that I don't know how that's going to go, but I assume that's going to happen somewhere in this book. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles versus Street Fighter #1 is also quite amusing. In fact, I'm thinking, well, that and Yoda actually were pretty good. So I feel like I had a couple of gems in this week's lot, but I think I am actually going to go with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles versus Street Fighter #1 of 5.
Ha ha ha! What a title!
Yeah. Like
What a concept!
Look, the Turtles, like I said earlier, the Turtles have had crossovers with almost everybody. They only have so many left to do before they pretty much hit every franchise. This one was probably one that was expected, though, because it makes sense.
Right. What I was going to say is, I don't know. Like, I was listening to what you said. Did you mention kind of imagining what this would look like in video game? Like in a video game, like seeing them like in a Street Fighter style video game, like versus each other.
I feel like we probably don't have to imagine that, but yes, I can imagine it. But it depends on what tech they'd use. If they use Street Fighter tech, then I could definitely see it. I mean, there was
could be Turtles in Time tech. Like
Well, that's
Turtles in
Konami,
style.
right? I thought about that too as beat 'em up style, so that could very well be the case, or it could be like Injustice style, which I wouldn't mind that either. But I don't know. Like I said, Capcom is already doing Street Fighter, so if they were going to do this, it would probably
Right.
be in the Street Fighter engine. Which you know what,
Yeah.
6 is out now, so if they happen to bring, I know of the characters they're bringing in for the next year, but if they happen to bring in the Turtles, that would be some funny shit.
That would be funny. All right, so let me bite the bullet here and just say that my click of the week is Ambassadors number 6 of 6 from Image.
Kind of figured.
But Immortal X-Men was good. When Roddykat reads it, he'll understand why it was a close second.
Yeah, I had intended to read it, but it was like, shoot, do I need to? Because like I said with X-Men, I was like, yeah, I need to go back. I had to go back and read a couple of issues to kind of pick back up the thread.
Right, especially post Sins of Sinister, or even pre Sins of Sinister.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, let's see.
Right.
Immortal, I think I was kind of keeping up with, but yeah, definitely. Because of Sins of Sinister, so.
Right, but Sins of Sinister, I was going to say the effects of Sins of Sinister are actually still being felt in the pages of Immortal X-Men.
Right.
So it's in any event, we're going to move on to the next portion of our show. But first, an ad read for Blue Apron. Blue Apron's meal delivery service. Fresh ingredients and incredible recipes delivered weekly to your door. Skip the grocery store and make incredible meals at home with Blue Apron. Always shipped free right to your home. And now the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can get $30 off your first Blue Apron order. To place your first order with $30 off and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us. That's cspn.us. Then click on the Keep Our Podcasts free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down to the Blue Apron link and sign up for your first order. Blue Apron through cspn.us. Do it today. And now we get into the news.
And we get into cinematic news as I move this out of the way. Excuse me. We start off with, folks, like I said, I said this before the show, but this is a weirdly light week on actual news because there's a bunch of rumors and reports going on here, so bear with me. Bear with us. The Brave and the Bold reportedly taps the Flash director. So Andy Muschietti, director of the Flash, may possibly be directing the Brave and the Bold movie, which is Batman and Robin, which will be a Batman and Robin movie and not like, Green Arrow and the Flash or whoever. So again, this comes from some rumor site that I have no idea about, but it was like, okay. The Flash is going to be a thing. We'll talk about that later in the show. But next up.
I mean, if it's all rumor.
Exactly.
Blue Beetle promo introduces Becky G as Kaji Da, the voice of the Scarab. So on the film's official Instagram, Becky G announced that she has joined the Blue Beetle familia as the voice of Kaji Da, the alien scarab that bonds with Jaime Reyes, played by Zolo Maridueña, and gives him superpowers. The announcement is followed by a new promo for Blue Beetle, which highlights the dynamic between Jaime and the scarab.
Right. So if anybody's keeping track, I believe that means that Becky G has now been in the DC universe and a Power Ranger, as well as whatever, I guess.
And my response to the news of Becky G is who?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that is the only reason why I even know that name is because of the Power Rangers movies, which I still haven't seen actually. Let's think about it. So, anywho's, speaking of the Batman 2 has rumored, has Two-Face rumored, and yeah. That's pretty much that. So they're potentially casting Two-Face in the Batman Part 2, as this article says, could come down to the flip of a coin. Boo. But yeah, Matt Reeves returning to direct. Pattinson's still back in the cowl. Looks like 2024 is when they're going to start filming. And let's see, they're reportedly eyeing 2 actors for the role of Harvey Dent: Josh Hartnett and Joel Edgerton. So I guess Uncle Owen is on the seat. But yeah, this was revealed on some podcast. So okay. Next up.
All right. Alrighty. So are you ready to save the world with Totally Spies?
Who?
If so, then you better get ready. After a long stint away, the animated spy series is getting ready for its comeback.
What?
A revival of the show's in the works, and a new poster showing off Totally Spies' leads is bringing the gang back together. I mean,
Who?
so apparently they look adorable with the new art style.
Look,
I'm
there are
looking
some.
I'm looking for any more news on when, but I guess there is no when.
Yeah. Look, there are some 90s kids that are flipping their shit right now.
Okay.
So, that's for them. But speaking of said 90s kids, Adult Swim adds Ed, Ed, and Eddie, Dexter's Lab, and more as a part of a new throwback block, which they're not. Okay. Yeah. It says here, last month, Adult Swim expanded its daily programming by 1 hour. Deadline reports that this move has been proven to be a success, that Warner Brothers Discovery is giving Adult Swim another extra hour in 2 months. And when that happens, the new block is going to be called Checkered Past, a reference to Cartoon Network's iconic checkerboard logo. Sure. It'll consist of, and this article says it, but okay, classic, I'm using air quotes, shows that no longer regularly air on Cartoon Network proper, such as Ed, Ed and Eddie, Dexter's Lab, Courage the Cowardly Dog, and The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Adult Swim's Checker Pass will replace a rotation of current Cartoon Network shows like Teen Titans Go. So, again, 90s kids flipping their shit again, I'm sure. And this was going to start on August 28th, by the way. So, look out for that, I guess. Next up.
All right. So, Spider-Punk's chaotic look had to break across the Spider-Verse's animation rules. So, an animator goes into some depth and detail about how the look was created and adapted from the comics and into this animation, and how it is just super different, because apparently the jacket is animated at a different frame rate, and there's a lot of different things going on with this version of Hobie Brown.
Yeah, but hey, it all came together, so good stuff. Hey folks, you may or may not have been aware of this, but apparently Isaac has made Marvel history, and I guess Disney history also, if you add his Star Wars stuff. But Marvel history across his Spider-Verse role. So per the direct, I guess it kind of recounts all of his roles. He was Apocalypse and X-Men Apocalypse. Moon Knight, of course, and also, of course, Spider-Man 2099 and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which if I have not said this joke before, and I think I did, he could do the Spider-Man meme all by himself. But yeah, and this article also goes on to recount other actors who have taken multiple roles with Marvel characters. So there you go. Next up.
All righty. Edward James Olmos is guest starring as Molecule Man in season 2 of Marvel's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. That's pretty cool. He's in the first episode of season 2. Is this out now?
No, because I think the rest of season 1 just came out like a few weeks ago. So well, let me phrase that. As far as I know, it's not, but I know season 1 is pretty much all out there at this point.
Gotcha.
So, and I don't know if you looked at it, but this is definitely not the Molecule Man, the look of the Molecule Man that we know of. But I know
that does not look like the Owen Reese I know.
Yeah, they have taken some liberties with certain characters, because there is another character that is voiced by Lawrence Fishburne that shows up partway through season 1 that doesn't have the look we would know from the character. So, but hey, that show's neat, kind of fun. Yeah. Captain America 4 title change confirmed by Anthony Mackie. I had this article and I was like, he could have been mistaken, and I don't know if this is true or not, but places have gone with it. So it seems that from Anthony Mackie's Instagram, he has a picture of him in his cap suit talking to one Harrison Ford, looking at the dailies, looks like. And it's captioned, "When Harrison Ford tells you how kicking ass should look, you listen, lol. Thanks for the onset wisdom and laughs, my friend. Can't wait to do it again. Marvel Studios Captain America Brave New World in theaters May 3rd, 2024. But I said all that to say that, yeah, while it sounded like he was mistaken, if you're watching the video version of this, you can see the image for yourself, and the chairs, the movie chairs, which also have the logo for the name change. So it's apparently legit. We don't know why they're changing the name, and according to this article, Marvel Studios hadn't explained the name change, but oh well, this article goes into speculation, which we won't go into. But yeah, I'm kind of curious myself. Next up.
In an interview with GQ magazine, Chris Hemsworth revealed that even his children's friends had much to say about the 2022 movie Thor: Love and Thunder when it was released. Apparently, a bunch of 8-year-olds critiqued his film, and they thought that Love and Thunder had too much humor. The action was cool, but the VFX weren't as good, and he cringed and laughed equally at it. The actor stated. He went on to admit that he and the creative team behind Love and Thunder got carried away with certain aspects of the film, such as its disparate tone. He says, quote, "I think we just had too much fun. It just became too silly. It's always hard being in the center of it and having any real perspectives. I love the process. It's always a ride, but you just don't know how people are going to respond." I think that's probably fair, especially coming from him after a year, apart from the film.
First of all, he took that check. Second of all, I mean, sure, partly, but also it's not like the movie previously was not equally as silly. Maybe, no, it was equally as silly. I'm not even gonna say that. So they just kind of took that and kind of kept going with it.
Right. And I can understand why they wanted to keep it light. You know what? Part of me, I understood why they wanted to keep it light, but there's certain aspects of the movie that needed to be serious. They needed to sprinkle more serious and keep the humor there just enough so that it doesn't get too dark, as opposed to the other way around.
But, hey, when you get that check, after that check cash, you can say anything you want.
Yeah, I guess that's another way to look at it. I feel like he's had the chance to look back on it, and like I said, sometimes the children can be the harshest critics and the most true critics.
Sure, that's true. Gargoyle's creator says Disney didn't want its name on the show, according to co-creator Greg Wiseman, who recalls Disney's reluctance to include the name on the animated series' title card, which, sure, he responded on Twitter about this. I won't go into what he says about it, but hey, if you're interested, you either already have seen it or you're watching the video version. Or you can read it in the show notes. Next up.
Alrighty, next up. Ahsoka has an official premiere date. So that's coming out on August 23rd. It's not far from now.
Mm-hmm.
Disney just announced.
Yeah, can't wait. Transformers Rise of the Beast reveals final trailer. I have not watched it. Have not seen the movie because it's out today.
Yep. As of the date of this recording.
Yep. So, but hey, actually, I think I might have seen another thing. Think about it, because if it's one of those, if it's a TV spot that I saw earlier, I probably did see it. Regardless, hey, that movie doesn't look terrible. I may actually watch it at some point and let you know. Next up,
There is a report that a new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show following the events of Mutant Mayhem is reportedly in the works. According to Cinelinx, a new TMNT animated series is in the works for Paramount Plus, with Seth Rogen on board as a producer. The series will reportedly follow the events of the upcoming animated film. And the report has not been officially confirmed by Paramount or by Viacom CBS.
but also in other news, water is wet.
Mm-hmm.
This news comes from right before the show from Agent 70, who caught the fact that Vin Diesel announced Fast and Furious' release date. It will arrive in theaters April 2025. So actually April 4th, 2025 to be specific, unless it moves. So there you go. Buckle up, folks. It's coming. Next up.
Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender star shared a first peek at Roku, not the video service.
No, not the streaming service, the streaming box.
So it is a special bender. And so C.S. Lee took to social media earlier this week to share the sneak peek with fans, and people are apparently geeking out. And you know what my response is? Who?
Nerd alert!
You should watch Avatar. You will know who Roku is. But for those who
Now that's comedy.
I'm just saying, look, it is anime influence and it's a good story. You should, and it's only 3 seasons. So, unless you go watch Korra, but y'all, you know what? Avatar folks know who Roku is, so I don't have to say. But
There
you know what a big deal that is. Anime Corner. Anime Expo screens U.S. premiere for new Rurouni Kenshin anime, which I think is called Rascal Does Not Dream of a Sister Venturing Out. Wait, hold on. No, this is a different thing. Sorry. I thought that was the name of it. That's ridiculous. But apparently July of 2023 is when the new Rurouni Kenshin anime is going to come out. I don't know if the creator, well, I'm assuming the creator is going to get something, but if I'm not mistaken, that is the same creator who has had some outside problems, I guess, there's say. But nevertheless, yeah, I guess we'll find out more as the time goes by. Apparently, there was a U.S. premiere for Rascal Does Not Dream of a Sister Venturing Out movie, which has nothing to do with Rurouni Kenshin, but based off of a light novel, and that's coming July. I guess talk about that is coming July 3rd during Anime Expo. So, and some other Aniplex of America stuff, including some a Demon Slayer panel, Magic and Muscles event, and a couple of other things that are going to come about. So if there's any news from it, we'll let y'all know. Next up.
Checkity check. All righty. So we're moving on into manga.
Sure.
Is there manga? Yes, there is.
Not really, but it's anime related, so we'll keep it pushing.
All righty. To celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Serial Experiments Lane anime series, Layer 3301 Decipher, an alternate reality game ARG, is scheduled for release in response to enthusiastic requests from fans. Prior to the release, a special website for the mystery-solving game opened. Okay. So the TV anime Serial Experiments Lane was aired for 13 episodes from July to September 1998. Okay.
I would be curious. I don't know if you would like Lane, but I would be curious to see what you thought about it.
If I can find it.
And I think I want to say it's probably it's out there somewhere. But that's a weird one, and it might be a little slow to start, or it might be, if I remember correctly, a little slow period. But nevertheless, we're going into comic book news. So we got a bunch of previews to start us off, because like I said, news was kind of slow this week. But we got a first look at Rivers of London, Here Be Dragons from Titan Comics, which is coming out July 12th, 2023. Rivers of London is the series that's pretty much like, I guess if I were to shortcut this, in a Magic James Bond, let's just say, type situation going on there. That is from writer Ben Aaronovich, which is a series of novels, and Andrew Cartmel, who are joined by some other people too for this book. So like I said, if you know about that series and enjoy it, be on the lookout for that. But here's some preview pages. Next up,
I was reading one of the clickbait stories. Apparently, you can watch the original Beast King Go Lion on Crunchyroll now.
I was going to bring that up. Yeah, that was gonna, but I forgot to before we went into the manga stuff. But yes.
Wow.
Because, and what brought that up was, matter of fact, we'll go back to that right now. But yeah, there's some classic manga that classic anime, mecha anime that you can, that's apparently out there somewhere, including Gunbuster, which kind of got me on the hunt, which led me to this article basically. So yeah, and Gunbuster also was one that I've heard of but never watched. But Gunbuster, and excuse me, Beast King Go Lion. Although, you know, we know what Beast King Go Lion is, and Go Lion is out there on Crunchyroll, so it's not like you can't watch that. But that's been out there. But yeah, that's basically another version of Voltron. I want to say it is the original.
It's the original cut, right?
Yeah.
It's the original cut of Voltron before they recut it for American audiences,
right? Which there's a couple of those include, but this is like the first one. So yeah, but yeah, if you want to check out Go Lion, aka Voltron, in its original form, it's out there on Crunchyroll. Been out there for a while actually. Gunbuster again was, like I said, was the one that kind of led me to this, and I had heard of it, but had never watched it. So, and now I think that's about to get a Blu-ray release. So, but all that is in the clickbait section if you are so interested. So, yeah.
All right. Before I hit the next story, I will hit the next story. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I wanted to make note that in I think it was yesterday's New York Times, there was an article about, or 2 days ago, and it looks like they updated it. There's an article that the creators of South Park, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, have basically bought the original Casa Bonita that was kind of memorialized in a South Park episode, La Casa Bonita. Do you remember that?
No, because I didn't watch a lot of.
No,
I didn't watch a lot of.
Well, that's a real place. It's a real restaurant. And apparently they bought it, renovated it, and apparently they've redone it. And it's and it's an incredible restoration and enhancement. You know, it's kind of like a retro mod, right? It's for people who are into the car scene, or like classic car scenes. Retro mod is a retro car that's been modernized, and that's what this is. This is a retro mod because they brought things up to date and obviously up to code. So the article's interesting. I'm still kind of making my way through it, but I just thought I'd drop that during the animation, maybe not anime part of the show. But following on the actual news, we have now a first look at Void Rivals #1 as being published by Skybound. And Void Rivals #1 is a new book. It's let's see, it's from the team of Robert Kirkman and Lorenzo Di Felici, along with colorist Mateus Lopez and letterer Russ Wooten. I'm looking for release date. It'll be on simultaneously in comic book shops and digital platforms on Wednesday, June 14th. That's next week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of these are soon or this week, actually, like this next one. First look at Fence Redemption #1 from Boom Studios, which I think came out this week. It is a 4-issue limited series from GLAAD Media Award nominated sports comic. From USA best-selling author, wow, C.S. Pacat, acclaimed cartoonist Johanna the Mad, colorist Joanna LaFuente, and letterer Jim Campbell. And as I said, the reason why I put this one there is because this seems anime, but it is not, because it basically says, return to the thriller world of high-stakes competitive fencing with the next exciting chapter of Fence, featuring the beloved cast of the original hit series, which I did not know there was for one. Also, Fence Redemption I should have thought about that, because leverage redemption. But hey, go figure. Next up,
Image Comics has released multiple eye-popping covers as well as interior pages for Bone Orchard Tenement #1. So this is from the Eisner Award-winning creative team behind Gideon Falls, Primordial, The Passageway, and 10,000 Black Feathers. Jeff Lemire and Andrea Sorrentino comes the biggest and most essential project yet in the bold and ambitious new shared horror universe of the Bone Orchard mythos, titled Tenement. Let's see here. Published date. Tenement #1 will be available at comic book shops on Wednesday, June 21st. That is 2 weeks from now.
mm-hmm. Let's see. We have a preview here for New Talent Showcase, the Milestone Initiative for #1, which I think came out this week, but we did not get a copy of it. But it says here, May of 2022, 12 writers and 12 artists came to DC headquarters to hone their skills with some of the best comic creators in the business. 1 year later, we're showing off the results of the cohort's hard work. So there's 12 stories out of the Ally-sponsored Milestone Initiative. And I believe we got some preview pages here if you want to check that out. Yes, we do. And I believe that also, again, that came out this week, so you should be able to find it. Next up.
Earlier today, the date of this recording and broadcast, select retailers were invited to the Ultimate Invasion virtual conference, where writer Jonathan Hickman, artist Brian Hitch, and Marvel editor-in-chief C.B. Cebulski laid out the plans for a new Ultimate Universe that will spin out of the pages of the Ultimate Invasion series. So I'm not going to spoil what happens, but essentially after some stuff that happens in the series, a group of Marvel's heroes are caught in a war between timelines as universes collide. The foundation of a new line of Ultimate Comics will be built. MCUification. This November, Marvel is proud to present. Only Marvel is proud to present Ultimate Universe #1, a one-shot written by Jonathan Hickman and drawn by Stefano Caselli with a cover by Brian Hitch. The story will introduce readers to this new line that will be home to an array of brand new, quote, hard-hitting series. A fresh start for a new generation. Prepare to see your favorite characters redefined for today's world. Stay tuned in the coming months for more information, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah.
So,
again, hold on. The one thing I will say,
Boy, I'm getting too old for this shit.
So as Agent 70 has joked, yeah, this is not just any MCUification. This is pretty much where the MCU came about from the original Ultimate Universe, as Agent 70 knows. The fact that they're going back to this and bringing this back is kind of weird. I thought it was like just some anniversary thing that they were doing for this year, but I did not know that they were actually bringing back the universe, which there's been an Ultimate character kind of been doing that for the last while, so I guess that makes sense. And I guess the saving grace of this, at least, is Hickman doing this.
Yeah.
Wait, was it Hickman originally, or was it Bendis? I know Bendis was doing Spider-Man.
Right, Bendis was on Spider-Man. Miller was doing
Mark Miller. Yes, did that. That's right. So, but yeah, so it ought to be. We like Hickman stuff. mumbo jumbo and all. So I expect it's going to be all right. They better not put Miles back in this universe. That's all I'm saying.
No, you know what? I think at the end of the day, he may not be back in the universe, but he may be central to the MCUification as they try to move away from Peter.
Well, yeah. I mean, as the one character from that universe, sure, that makes some sense.
Right. And I think that's where this is all going to go. We're going to see the roots for the future of the MCU take place in this new ultimate corner of the Marvel universe. That's my guess.
Yeah, I don't know about the Peter part about it, but yeah, but it still makes sense though. So
no, because at the end of the day, what I was going to say is at the end of the day, just as a quick aside, as much as I love Tom Holland's portrayal of Peter Parker, the other side of the coin is that he has had several films. And eventually they're going to do Miles, and they may very well bring Miles into the MCU if they execute a new deal the way they did with, between Sony and Marvel Studios.
Right. And we've been seeing
Sony may not want to, honestly, but the counter argument would be they can do Spidey animated. They can't seem to do Spidey live action.
And they definitely have been on both accounts. So, but
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that would be the reasoning behind a new agreement between the two studios to share the responsibilities and the rights for Miles' live screen debut.
Yeah, and we already talked last week about there is looking to be a live action Miles in the future, according to Spider-Verse's one of Spider-Verse's producers. But anyway, take the next one.
Hold on. Oh, you want me to take the Predator one? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. 1 second, because I already had the one after that queued up.
Yeah, no, we're switching.
It's all right. Yeah. The Predator enters the Marvel Universe as Benjamin Percy pits two of pop culture's deadliest hunters against each other in Predator versus Wolverine this September. So this is coming out in a 4-issued limited series, again written by Ben Percy, with art by Greg Land, Andrea DeVito, Ken Lashley, Kei Zama, and many more. The series will reveal a bitter rivalry between Wolverine and a Yautja who's been stalking him since his earliest days. Okay, that's over 4 issues. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know why. Well, we know why, because they got the license, so they're going to play it up. So why wasn't this called WVP? I don't know. You know there's going to be another AVP coming. There's got to be at some point. But
yeah.
Here's where we're starting. And that's probably going to be Aliens versus Wolverine at some point also, since they also have the license, but we'll see. Anyway, the reason why I had Agent 70 take this is because, buckle up, folks, we got Toy Corner / video game corner that I'm going to take the bulk of. Actually, I'm going to take all of, because it's like four things. So we start off with, although I probably should have had to take this one, but the Marvel's Hasbro reveals a new Marvel Legends series. We were talking about this before the show. We got a new wave, 4 figures that have anything to do with the Marvel's movie that is coming up, and the rest don't, including Agent 70. What's the Build-A-Figure?
Well, let me tell you that there are 3 figures, it looks like, that are related, that are straight from the movie. Right, so we have Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, right? The movie version, including costume of Monica Rambeau, and Iman Vellani, who appeared as Ms. Marvel. That is an update of the Ms. Marvel Marvel Legends figure that is included here. And interestingly, we also get the Flurkin included in with the Ms. Marvel figure. The
Oh,
other
okay.
characters who are included in this wave individually are Commander Rogers, right? Steve Rogers in his costume when he was just, Commander Rogers for a while
With the
with
photonic shield.
with the photonic shield. This is actually a nice update on the original Commander Rogers figure. This is one of the figures I want to get. I don't like the fact that he has that grimace face on him on his face though. That's kind of whack, right? That face sculpt is whack. One of the cool figures that I'm super tempted to get because I have the Extremis Iron Man redo in my Amazon to be bought cart. It's just waiting for me to, get around to clicking, add to cart. This is the Heroes Reborn armor. This brings back such good memories. This is designed by Sean Chen. This is back when Kurt Busiek was writing Iron Man. This is the Heroes Return armor. It's pretty cool. So I have fond memories of that. We have Marvel. Is it Marvel Boy?
Yeah. Novar.
Novar Marvel Boy. That's pretty unremarkable to me. But there's one last character in this wave of individual figures, and that is Karnak of the Inhumans. Ah, man. So that means we'll have Karnak, Black Bolt, and Medusa. Still no actual 6-inch scale lockjaw. That's what I really want.
I was about to ask, wasn't there a lockjaw?
There was. I don't think it was 6-inch scale though. I don't think.
Oh.
I don't think it was 6-inch scale.
Right. So going back to what you were saying. Oh, I'm sorry. Real quick, going back to what you were saying about the face sculpt. I'm not crazy about the Miss Marvel one. I mean, it kind of looks like Iman Vellani, but also the cheekbones kind of weirdly look Jokerish.
Yeah, because what it is that they're capturing a certain facial expression, and it's awkward.
Right.
That's the problem with that, is that it's awkward. If they had a second, head for the figure, that would help.
Right.
I think. The Build-A-Figure, that's the kind of controversial part for myself and Roddykat. Because the Build-A-Figure is Amadeus Cho as a totally awesome Hulk. Why is this character included in this wave? The only connection the character has with any of the characters in this wave right now is Ms. Marvel, and it's with the comic book version of Ms. Marvel, not with this version. So it's kind of weird.
And oh no, they do. I'm about to say they don't even mention it here, but they do. Yeah. So as we have discussed in the past and pre-show, a lot of these, because I've seen some chatter online. I was like, 4 of these characters have nothing to do with the movie. I'm like, yes, that's true. Not the first time, not the last time for these waves. As Age of 70 even said before the show, sometimes the waves don't even have a theme. They just throwing figures together, basically.
Right.
So could they have done something else? Probably. I mean, now granted, with this particular wave, I'm not sure. If they were going to go the way I think Agent 70 said it, also they could have just gone full champions with the rest of the wave.
Right.
So, but they chose not to for whatever reason. Also,
I mean, why is Commander Rogers in here? You know what I mean?
Why is Heroes Reborn Iron Man in here?
Right. Right.
Karnak, Novar, come on.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah.
I'm like, God, I want to build totally awesome Hulk. That's the problem.
Right. However, I just don't want to get some of these figures that you'd have to do it to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So
you wouldn't even be able to sell them. That's what William Bruce West would say. Just get it and sell them, flip them. I'm like, who's gonna buy that?
Somebody who really likes the Inhumans or the Young Avengers.
Yeah. Strange. Anyway,
pretty much. All right. We're going into the video game corner, which I'm going to again take out of Agent 70's hands.
Please.
So a new season of Marvel Snap has been released, and with that, a whole bunch of new cards. I believe the new series is Spider-Verse, unsurprisingly, related. And if you're watching the video version, you can see some of the cards that are coming out, or have and are coming out soon. Like this, because it's June, Ghost Spider, I believe, is the one for the season pass, which, you know, Gwen Stacy, some other Spider-Man characters, including Silk and 2099, and some other characters are getting variant covers and whatnot. So yeah, stuff's coming. And this article says kind of when, but we won't need to go through that. Next up, though, Marvel's Avengers coasts towards its end with a final patch that unlocks everything. So we know that come September 30th, they are ending support for Marvel's Square Enix's Marvel Avengers. So they've been pretty much kind of making their way to that in patches and stuff. So yeah, there's a content patch that happened this past March that unlocks a lot of stuff in the game's marketplace, because they basically said, you know what, well, we're not gonna be able to sell them anymore, so we're just giving them to everybody. I haven't played that game in so long, I need to go ahead and get those updates. So yeah, if you have been playing that game but probably haven't in a while, go update the game, update the game and get that stuff, of which there's a lot of it cosmetically. Next up, Marvel Spider-Man 2. Thanks for Agent 70 for reminding me of this and mentioning this. Marvel Spider-Man 2 finally has a release date, and that date is October 20th of this year, for the new Insomniac Spider-Man game, which was, the first one was great, and this one is looking to be also great. So I need to finish the first one so I can play, well, the first two, and so I can play this game, which has Peter and Miles teaming up against Kraven the Hunter, and there's some Venom shenanigans going on. Last in the video game corner, BioWare to hand off Star Wars MMO to focus on Mass Effect and Dragon Age, according to a report. It seems that support for Star Wars The Old Republic is going to be given to Ultimate Online and a Dark Age of Camelot developer Broadsword Online Games. This is not that much different from when DC Universe Online also ended up changing developers. And I believe that was also is that a Sony thing? No, it was I can't remember. Regardless, but they ended up changing developers for probably similar reasons. So yeah, look forward to that happening at some point. It doesn't say, oh wait, yes it does. There is development planned, but okay, now they're just talking about patches. So that change is going to happen at some point soon. Now we get to the last story of the night, which you're not the only section you're going to find is the. You want me to take it?
Oh, you want me to hit this last one?
Yes.
I was actually reading an interesting article. Okay. I am not plugging the New York Times, but I am, of course, a New Yorker and a subscriber. So before I hit this last story, I wanted to mention that, there's a story in the New York Times about the 14-year-old animator.
Oh, shoot. Yes.
There is a mild spoiler alert. There is a Lego scene in Across the Spider-Verse. This is a 14-year-old kid, the son of immigrants from Cameroon.
Yes, that was the story. I saw that and I was going to pull that story and I totally forgot to do that. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I will have that in the show notes after the show.
Like seriously, it's incredibly cool that as a young man of color, a young black man, kid, a child of immigrants from Africa. Of course, they are of means. His dad is a medical physicist and his mom is an instructor of, I just read it. I'm like, wait, so, they built him his computer, right? They built him a better computer. I'm like, yeah, that, there is some element there that, it does help to have, some funds to get into computer animation. but this kid is gifted, and they were able to spot that and nurture that, and that's something that is a point that both of his parents make in this article. So it's pretty cool.
Right. Also Canadian, but not that that has anything to do with the fact, except for probably getting a better chance to breathe and live. But
You mean where the wildfires are now? I'm kidding. So
wait, is it
let's
coming from
not-
Toronto? I mean, I know it is coming from
yeah, it's
Canada.
from Canada.
But, oh, I know that.
Blake,
But
Canada. Blake, see, that's like lost on Roddykat because he never watched any South Park.
it's true.
But yeah.
But nevertheless,
And
like Agent 7 said, it's a feat and glory. And you saw the if you've seen Across the Spider-Verse, you've seen some the fruits of this kid's labor.
Exactly. But at the end, well, actually, you know what? He's not in Canada. He was born in Minnesota.
Well, it says, according to this article I'm looking at, it says it's a 14-year-old from Toronto, Canada. So where he's from and where he's at is different.
Yeah, I was about to say that could be different, right? Right. He said it says he was born in Minnesota, but whether or not he's in Canada now is another story.
Right.
But in any event, last but not least, the story here is a new Street Fighter miniseries that sets up Street Fighter 6 is available on the Street Fighter website for free.
Yeah.
And it's getting a print run as well.
Yeah, I think it's going on now because I noticed the reason why I even noticed that I was like, I saw, I think issue 3 that's out right now that supposedly came out this week. But I've also been seeing stuff about this, which is there's like 4 issues of this miniseries that like I think it's supposed to be a prequel, and it seems to be the same thing, but they're just doing a print run and this at the same time. So I don't know if this, from what I've seen from that and the print run and this looks to be the same story. But they're just also charging for it. But if you want to check out what that is, and hey, Street Fighter 6 is your jam, you might want to check this out if you're a comic book reader. I've only read a couple of pages of this, but I've definitely been hitting the Street Fighter 6 a good bit. So there's something I just happened to come across in the last couple of days. And that, folks, is the end of our news. Can we get one last ad read?
Our last ad read of the night is for Amazon. Help us keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us, then click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, or Marvel Legends. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Do it today.
All right, folks, that brings us to the end of the show. But first, before we do, guess what? We're going on movie protocol yes again, because Agent 70 is going to go see the Flash movie. I may or may not see it, but I'm not going to day one. If I happen to see a copy out there that I can review purposes, then I might check it out. But I am not going to see that movie unless somebody also invites me to go see it and pays my ticket, which is not going to happen. So Agent 70 will likely, we will be recording next week, but it will not be on Thursday nights, and Agent 70 will give his, his impressions of said movie.
Sure. Not too many spoilers because there are already a lot of potential spoilers out there right now. But I will keep it spoiler light and, let you guys know what I think at least of this, much anticipated movie. I guess that's fair to say by some people.
By a lot of people, sure. By some people, sure. I've seen some initial reviews. Apparently it is doing somewhat well, or review-wise, I guess.
Sure.
So, go figure. But yeah, that'll be next week. So yeah. That being the case, I have been Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter. You can find me at News on Twitter. You can find CB Caps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter and Instagram. PC_Dirt on Twitter, Pop Culture Net on Twitter, popculturenetwork.com is all his umbrella sites therein. The newly rejuvenated Tim Dog 98 on Twitter. You can find him at that. You can also find him at CB Cron on Twitter. You could also, which is the Comic Book Chronicles Twitter account. You can find him at the Kliq Nation on Twitter, which is another site of his, thekliqnation.com. But also, you can find him at comicbook.com, writing his face off. Timothy Adams, by the way, is the name you should be looking for on that site. You can find this here podcast on the Coastal Podcast Network. That's cspn.us.
Do it today.
You can also find this on your podcast brutal place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal Podcast Network's SoundCloud page.
Make sure to hit like and subscribe and leave us all the 5-star reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts.
And we thank anybody who may or may not have been checking us out as we record, and we record every Thursday night at 9:30-ish Eastern Standard Time on the Kliq Nation's YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/thekliqnation and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles. But if Twitch has their way, I'm not sure how long that's going to happen.
Again, hit like and subscribe and hit the notification button so you know when we are on live broadcasting and recording.
All right, folks, like I said, movie protocol aside, we will be back next week. Stay tuned to our socials for that bit of information. This has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One. Wakanda forever!